Is it true that reheating certain foods can raise your cancer risk? The short answer is, it depends on the food, and most people are getting it wrong on exactly the foods they think are safest. Every day, over 2 billion people around the world reheat leftovers, assuming that if food is hot enough, it's automatically safe. In a few specific cases, that assumption is wrong. Here's a number worth thinking about. According to data published in the journal CA, a cancer journal for clinicians, poor dietary habits are the second leading modifiable risk factor for cancer worldwide, right behind tobacco use. The people most at risk aren't those with unusual habits, they're ordinary people who believe they're making healthy choices. Before we start, something important to say up front, with full honesty. What we're covering today isn't "this food causes cancer" in some absolute sense. Real science almost never works with claims that clean-cut. What the research actually shows, with varying degrees of certainty depending on the case, is that certain chemical compounds that form in reheated food are associated with an increased risk of specific cancers. I'll walk you through exactly how strong that evidence is, food by food, because that distinction is what lets you leave this video informed, not scared. Let's get into it. Food number 1. Cooked rice. Rice is the most widely eaten staple food on Earth. Over 3 billion people rely on it as their primary calorie source, and huge numbers of them reheat leftover rice every single day, a habit deeply rooted in nearly every culture. But there's a serious problem here, and it has far less to do with the reheating itself and much more to do with what happens to rice while it sits in the fridge between the first cooking and the second. As cooked rice cools, it becomes an almost ideal environment for a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. It's not a rare contaminant, it's naturally present in raw rice, survives the initial cooking, and can multiply rapidly in cooked rice left at room temperature or stored in the fridge for extended periods. When you reheat the rice, the heat may kill the bacteria, but it doesn't destroy the heat-resistant toxins they've already produced. Those toxins survive the microwave, survive the stovetop, and enter your digestive system intact. Here's where precision matters. The primary documented risk from this bacterium isn't cancer, it's acute food poisoning, and it deserves serious attention on its own, without being stretched into a cancer claim. Bacillus cereus produces a toxin called cerulide, which laboratory studies have shown can damage the mitochondria inside human cells, their energy source. In the most severe cases, this can lead to acute liver failure, muscle tissue breakdown, and serious metabolic imbalances. Documented fatal cases are rare but real, and mostly involve infants, young children, and people with existing liver conditions. One scientific detail that helps show just how sensitive this window of risk really is. Research shows toxin production is closely tied to bacterial growth, and at around 86 degrees Fahrenheit, a common summer room temperature, toxin levels reached within 24 hours are similar whether the rice was boiled or fried afterward. Food safety guidelines recommend cooking rice to an internal temperature of around 212 degrees Fahrenheit to destroy the spores, then storing it below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, not just in the fridge in some vague sense. The difference between a properly calibrated fridge and one running slightly warm can genuinely affect how fast the toxin forms. One common myth worth clearing up. Many people assume fried rice is safer than boiled rice because the heat from the pan cleans it better. Lab data says the opposite. At the same storage temperature, toxin levels reached in boiled versus fried rice after 24 hours are essentially equivalent. The cooking method used the second time around doesn't change the risk, because what actually matters is how long the rice sat in the danger zone before being reheated, not how it's reheated. There's a second, less discussed but still relevant concern. Repeatedly heating starchy foods increases the formation of acrylamide, a compound produced when natural sugars react with the amino acid asparagine under high heat. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies acrylamide as a Group 2A carcinogen, meaning it's probably carcinogenic to humans. What to do about it? Cook rice fresh whenever possible. If you need to store it, spread it on a shallow tray right after cooking so it cools quickly, refrigerate it within an hour, make sure your fridge is actually running below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, eat it within 24 hours, and never reheat it more than once. Food number 2. Cooked chicken. Chicken is the world's most popular lean protein. Doctors, dietitians, bodybuilders, and health-conscious families all recommend it constantly. And when leftover chicken ends up in the fridge, almost everyone reheats it. That's where the problem starts, but here too, an important distinction rarely gets made clearly. When proteins, particularly those in animal muscle tissue, are exposed to high heat, they undergo a process called protein oxidation, which leads to the formation of compounds called heterocyclic amines. Heterocyclic amines aren't a controversial topic in nutrition science. They're among the most extensively studied dietary carcinogens in the scientific literature. Once in the body, liver enzymes metabolize them into highly reactive compounds that can bind directly to DNA, with the potential to cause genetic mutations. Here's where real precision matters. Heterocyclic amines form mainly during high-temperature cooking, particularly when meat is well done, grilled, or fried, far more than during the simple reheating of already cooked meat. Reheating does add another round of heat exposure, so it contributes incrementally to the formation of these compounds, especially with high heat, prolonged reheating methods, but the biggest factor remains how the chicken was cooked the first time, not the fact that it's being reheated. A study published in the journal Carcinogenesis found that people who regularly ate well-done or frequently reheated poultry had a statistically significant increase in colorectal cancer risk. In fairness, this kind of study looks at frequent, repeated consumption over time, not a single occasional reheated chicken meal. The risk, in other words, scales with dose and frequency, not with one isolated instance. Here's a genuinely useful lesser-known detail. Research has found that marinating meat before cooking with antioxidant-rich herbs and spices, like rosemary, thyme, garlic, or turmeric, can reduce heterocyclic amine formation by 70 to 90%, depending on the combination used. The mechanism is straightforward. These antioxidants neutralize the free radicals that would otherwise fuel the chemical reaction forming these compounds. It's one of the rare cases where a cheap, accessible kitchen habit has a measured, meaningful impact on reducing a documented dietary carcinogen. It's also worth putting pancreatic cancer in proper context here, since it's one of the most feared cancers due to its difficult prognosis. The genuinely established risk factors for this cancer are smoking, responsible for roughly a quarter of cases, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and high consumption of red and processed meat cooked at high temperatures. Occasionally reheated chicken at home doesn't appear among the firmly established risk factors. The heterocyclic amines that form in well-done or grilled meat are still worth acting on for the reasons we just covered, but placed in the right context, not treated as the leading cause of such a complex cancer. What to do about it? Whenever possible, eat leftover chicken cold, in salads or wraps. If you do reheat it, use the lowest effective temperature and avoid heating beyond the recommended safe internal temperature. And when you cook chicken the first time, consider marinating it with herbs. It's a small step with a documented benefit. Food number 3. Spinach and other nitrate-rich leafy greens. Spinach is arguably one of the most celebrated vegetables in healthy eating, rich in iron, folate, magnesium, and powerful antioxidants. Nutritionists, oncologists, and cardiologists consistently recommend eating more of it, and they're absolutely right, when it's eaten fresh or cooked once and consumed right away. The problem arises when spinach is stored and then reheated. Spinach, along with celery, beets, lettuce, and Swiss chard, is among the richest dietary sources of naturally occurring nitrates. In their natural form, these nitrates are beneficial, supporting cardiovascular health and healthy blood pressure regulation. But once cooked spinach is refrigerated, naturally occurring bacteria on the leaf surface begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. Under heat, those nitrites can react with amino acids in the spinach, and later in your stomach, to form nitrosamines, among the most potent dietary carcinogens identified by modern science. Here it's worth being honest about something that changes this risk picture quite a bit, and that almost never gets mentioned online. Overall research on vegetable consumption, including nitrate-rich vegetables like spinach, consistently shows that high vegetable intake is associated with a lower cancer risk, not higher, including stomach cancer. The reason is that spinach doesn't just contain nitrates, it also contains antioxidants, particularly vitamin C, which actively block the conversion of nitrites into nitrosamines. That's a substantial difference from processed meats, where nitrites are added as preservatives without this natural antioxidant protection, which is exactly why the World Health Organization classified processed meat, not vegetables, as a Group 1 carcinogen back in 2015. That doesn't mean the risk is made up. The chemical conversion is real and documented, and the European Food Safety Authority has published formal guidance on dietary exposure to nitrates and nitrites from vegetables, specifically flagging the potential risks of reheating nitrate-rich vegetables after storage. This is also why the baby food industry follows particularly strict limits on maximum nitrate levels in spinach and other leafy greens, specifically for that more vulnerable age group, a sign that regulators take this risk seriously in context, not just something discussed online. To give you a sense of scale, the amount of nitrosamines typically formed from a serving of reheated spinach remains an order of magnitude lower than what forms in processed meats with added nitrites, like bacon or cured meats, where the conversion starts from a chemically different base and without the same natural antioxidant protection. That's not an invitation to eat reheated spinach carelessly, but it does help place this specific risk correctly within the bigger picture of what's actually worth worrying about at the dinner table. What to do about it? Cook spinach and other leafy greens fresh whenever possible, and eat them right after cooking. If you have leftovers, eat them cold within a few hours. Don't refrigerate cooked spinach intending to reheat it later. If you must store it, keep it in an airtight container, eat it within 6 hours, and have it cold instead of reheating it. This precaution matters most for young children and pregnant women, the groups for whom guidelines are most cautious. Food number 4, eggs. Eggs are among the most nutritionally complete foods available. They contain all 9 essential amino acids. They're an excellent source of choline, a nutrient that supports brain function. They provide meaningful amounts of selenium, a mineral involved in antioxidant defense, and they contain lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 antioxidants that protect both eye health and cellular health. By nearly every nutritional standard, eggs are among the healthiest foods you can eat. But reheating eggs, especially scrambled or hard-boiled, creates a specific, often overlooked chemical issue, and of all 4 foods today, this is the one with the strongest scientific mechanism behind it. Eggs contain roughly 13% fat, most of it concentrated in the yolk. When an egg is cooked the first time, the fats in the yolk go through an initial stage of oxidation, a normal, expected process. But when a cooked egg is refrigerated and then reheated at high temperature, those already oxidized fats undergo secondary lipid oxidation at a much faster rate. The byproducts of this process, particularly malondialdehyde and oxysterols, are now well documented in the scientific literature. Oxysterols are oxidized forms of cholesterol, and a thorough review published in the journal Food and Chemical Toxicology concluded they carry pro-atherogenic, pro-inflammatory, and, most importantly, cytotoxic and genotoxic effects on human cells. Genotoxic is an important word here. It means toxic to the genetic material inside your cells, your DNA. By definition, genotoxic compounds are considered potential carcinogens because they can cause DNA strand breaks and genetic mutations that kick off the chain of events leading to cancer. A scientific review published in Lipids in Health and Disease confirms that several oxysterols, like colstain triol, show demonstrated genotoxicity in lab testing, and that numerous studies link oxysterols to various cancers, including colon, lung, skin, breast, and bile duct cancer. Here's a useful detail for actually reducing your exposure. How many oxysterols form depends heavily on the initial cooking method and on air exposure during storage. A hard-boiled egg stored with its shell intact protects the yolk from direct oxygen contact far better than scrambled eggs or a cut omelet sitting exposed to air in a container. This one detail, whether the shell is on or off during storage, meaningfully affects how much secondary oxidation happens even before the second reheating. The initial cooking method itself also makes a measurable difference. Hard-boiled or poached eggs, cooked at lower temperatures without direct exposure to hot oil, show noticeably lower cholesterol oxidation levels than fried or high-heat scrambled eggs. If you like to switch up how you prepare eggs, knowing that boiling gives you the most chemically stable option can help you choose consciously when you're making eggs you already know you'll need to store for the next day. There's a second concern tied to reheated eggs. When already cooked egg proteins are exposed to excessive heat a second time, especially during quick microwave reheating, they undergo further protein denaturation, forming abnormal crosslinks that make them harder for your digestive system to break down. Some research also suggests that the sulfur-containing amino acids naturally present in eggs can degrade during repeated heating, and the breakdown products may contribute to oxidative stress in the lining of the digestive tract, one of the proposed mechanisms behind the development of colorectal cancer, the third most common cancer worldwide. What to do about it? Eggs are best eaten right after cooking. If you prepare them ahead, store hard-boiled eggs with the shell on and eat them cold. Avoid microwaving scrambled eggs or omelets. If you absolutely need to warm an egg dish, use gentle, indirect heat, like a warm water bath or a very low oven, and never heat egg dishes above roughly 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that you've seen all 4 foods, it's worth understanding what ties them together, chemically. Behind each of the 4 cases we just covered, really, only 3 fundamental mechanisms are at work, repeating in different combinations. Knowing them helps you spot the same pattern in other foods we haven't covered today. The first mechanism is oxidation. Fats and proteins exposed to oxygen during storage become chemically unstable, and when heat is reapplied, they break down further into compounds like lipid peroxides and malondialdehyde, well documented as capable of damaging DNA. This is the main mechanism behind reheated eggs, and it also contributes to part of the risk with chicken. The second mechanism is the Maillard reaction gone wrong, the same reaction responsible for the rich flavor and golden color of cooked food. When proteins and sugars are repeatedly exposed to high heat, they can produce advanced glycation end products, which promote chronic inflammation, one of the major biological drivers of cancer development. It's the same type of chemical reaction underlying heterocyclic amine formation in chicken. The third mechanism is nitrite conversion. Certain nitrate-rich foods, like spinach, undergo bacterial conversion during fridge storage, and when reheated, those nitrates become nitrites, which can further transform into nitrosamines. Rice actually follows a fourth path entirely different from the other three. It's not a matter of oxidation or a chemical reaction within the food itself, but of bacterial activity and the toxins the bacteria produce, independent of the food's chemical structure. That's why the risk from rice is different in nature, more acute and immediate, compared to the slow, chronic buildup that characterizes the other three. Let's bring it all together. 4 foods, different mechanisms, different levels of scientific certainty, and it's precisely this honest distinction that gives you the real picture, not a simplified version designed to scare you. Rice, the most concrete, serious risk is acute food poisoning from bacterial toxins, not cancer directly. Chicken, the cancer risk is real but tied mainly to high-heat cooking method, with reheating adding an incremental exposure, and a simple step like marinating can meaningfully reduce it. Spinach, the chemical mechanism is real, but the practical risk needs context. Vegetables remain protective against cancer overall. Eggs, the scientific mechanism is the strongest of the 4, with documented genotoxicity from oxysterols, and storing with the shell on makes a measurable difference. One last thing that applies to all 4 foods, and often gets left out of conversations like this: dose and frequency matter just as much as the chemical mechanism itself. Eating reheated rice once in a while, handled with the precautions we covered, carries a very different risk than doing it as a daily habit for years. The same goes for well-done chicken and eggs. Toxicology always distinguishes between occasional exposure, which the body handles fine through normal cellular repair processes, and chronic, repeated exposure, which is the real factor that can make a difference over time. This video isn't asking you to cut any of these foods out of your life. It's asking you to handle the habits you repeat every week a little more consciously. One last strategy that applies to all 4 foods, and that reheating alone doesn't solve: freezing. Freezing food right after cooking, instead of leaving it in the fridge for days before deciding its fate, almost completely halts both the bacterial growth that produces toxins like cerulide in rice and much of the slow oxidation that happens in chicken and eggs during extended storage. Freezing doesn't stop the chemical reactions entirely, but it slows them down dramatically compared to simple refrigeration. A good practical habit is to divide leftovers into single portions right after cooking, freeze them within the first few hours, and only thaw them when needed, reheating once directly from frozen, a safer approach than the fridge reheat back to the fridge cycle many households repeat on the same container over the course of a week. Here's exactly what to do, point by point. For rice, cook it fresh when possible. If you store it, cool it within an hour, refrigerate it right away making sure it's below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, eat it within 24 hours, and never reheat it more than once. For chicken, whenever possible, eat leftovers cold in salads or wraps. If you reheat it, use the lowest effective temperature and avoid exceeding the recommended safe internal temperature. Consider marinating it with herbs before the first cooking. For spinach and other leafy greens, don't reheat them. Eat them cold or prepare them fresh. Store cooked greens for no more than 6 hours before eating them cold. For eggs, cook them fresh when possible. If you prepare hard-boiled eggs ahead, store them with the shell on and eat them cold. Never microwave scrambled eggs or omelets. One general tip that applies to all 4: invest in a food thermometer. Gentle reheating below 165 degrees Fahrenheit can significantly reduce the formation of many of the compounds we've discussed today, compared with high-heat cooking methods. Avoid reheating any food more than once: 1 cooking, 1 reheat, maximum. After that, toss the leftovers. Whenever possible, use a low-temperature oven instead of a microwave for reheating protein-rich foods, since microwaves can create uneven, localized hot spots that speed up oxidation reactions. And plan your meal portions carefully so you generate fewer leftovers in the first place. It's the single most effective behavioral change you can make. Restaurant leftovers deserve special mention, since they're often handled less carefully than food made at home. They sit in a bag or in the car for hours before reaching the fridge, and they may have already spent an unknown amount of time at room temperature during service. If you bring home leftovers containing any of these 4 foods, especially rice or chicken, refrigerate them as soon as possible, ideally within an hour of leaving the restaurant, and count the time already spent out of the fridge as part of your 24-hour window, not as neutral time that resets once you get home. None of this information requires special equipment, supplements, or drastic lifestyle changes. Just small, informed decisions that can substantially reduce your long-term exposure to potentially harmful compounds, without needing to give up any of these foods, which all remain, overall, healthy, valid choices. If this video was helpful, leave a like. If you have constructive feedback for me, write it in the comments. Lastly, subscribe to the channel to stay updated, and see you in the next video.